General Services Public Works Committee. It is July 26, and I have Councilman Gookin and Council Girl Miller. First thing on the agenda today, Monty McCulley. Welcome.
Good afternoon, councilors. Today I'm here to talk to you about the Can Course. And what that is, it's a piece of property between the city-owned Canfield Natural Park and the National Forest Service property up on Canfield Mountain. So several years ago, I want to say 16 or 17 years ago, the Canfield property, the 28 acres was donated to the city to use as a natural area. We used Boy Scouts and church groups to other volunteer groups to build a nice trail system, about 1.7 miles of loops through that lower portion in red here. And the Forest Service has 30 plus miles of mountain biking, hiking, and equestrian trails, motorcycle trails as well, in this area. Now the property in between was always private property, and it was formerly owned by Marvin Erickson. And for years we tried to work on an agreement with Erickson to get our trails through the Forest Service trails, because people were using that area anyway, but they were loving it to death. A lot of trails up and down, even motorcycle trails, which we've since mostly stopped, caused a lot of erosion. You can see that on the map here, the eroded spots. Well, a couple of years ago, a property owner in that area purchased the property from Erickson's estate with the intention of building mountain bike and hiking trails, better ones that connect. The entire idea from the beginning when he bought it was to use it for the public. So he purchased the property, he started building some trails, then he found out from the county that in order to do something for the public, you gotta have permits, even if it's your own property, because of insurance and injuries and lawsuits, things like that. So they asked him to get I think it was called a special use permit to allow that to happen. Jason started looking into that. That's Jason Evans, the property owner. And he found out that he would have to enforce all the rules, like no camping, and he found that to be problematic. So he approached the city and asked us if we would make the Can Course as a city park, or manage it as a city park. Still his property, but we would manage it as a city park. Someday, it might become a city park in title as well. So we started working on how to make this a reality. The main thing was to contact the property owners around there, and we've met with them several times. We've met with the county, and they liked the idea, even though it's in county property, of the city running it. Now, we couldn't use city ordinances because it's in the county, but Jason can create his own rules that mirror our ordinances, and we can enforce them the same way as we would our own city ordinances. So since it's in the county, we can't use PD to enforce those. So we went and met with the previous sheriff, Wolfinger, to get an agreement with him that the county would handle any kind of police issues out there. He agreed to it. We had our lawyers speak back and forth for a while to make sure it all worked and it was legal. And then once he left and the new sheriff came in, we met with him as well, and he will honor that agreement. And so the park will be ran by the Parks Department. It'll be enforced by the county sheriff. And so we have all those things in place. Now, we did meet with several property owners individually, and then we went to one of their homeowners association meetings a month and a half ago in Canfield to talk about what their issues would be, to invite them down to these meetings. We did invite them to the Parks and Rec Commission meeting. Nobody came to that, but I imagine there'll be a presence at the city council meeting. Homeowners, Jason Evans will be there, mountain bikers will be there, I'm sure. And just to let you know their all thoughts on it. The main issues that the homeowners had down here didn't really have to do with the Can Course so much as parking for Canfield Natural Park. So we had pushed off this MOU coming forward to kind of help them out with some of the problems they were having. And so we went and we put up a lot of signs trying to direct people to park along the one side of the street for the Canfield Natural area. And to also, if they overflow that, to park on Shattuck Lane or Shattuck Park parking lot instead of in front of the neighbors' houses. Now, we can't require it because it's a public street, but we can ask them to be courteous to the homeowners. And so we have all the signs up. One big sign going up tomorrow at Shattuck Park that Dave and I will be putting in that shows this map, or more than this map, it shows the parking areas all highlighted so people can see it and see the better places to park. We are hoping that since the Concourse trails, which Jason has continued to build, will be more of a draw for the mountain bikers. They are much easier to go up the hill than in our property. Ours are kind of an intermediate expert as far as going up because they're pretty steep. His will appeal to all levels of riders. And so we're thinking that more of the bike riders will park on Shattuck Lane instead of Canfield, and that'll help with some of that parking problem. So we created a master plan for the area. Jason and I and Bill went over the whole thing, came up with some ideas on how the trails would best go through the Concourse, connect to the Forest Service and connect to Canfield. And he's even put up some gates on the Forest Service side because there was problems with motorcycles. So he put these kind of chicane gates so that motorcycles, it's a lot harder for motorcycles to get in on those trails. And so he's done a lot of work up there. But he's also obliterating the old trails. He's planting seedlings. He had brought an expert in from Seattle to reclaim a lot of those erosive trails to try to regrow the vegetation. And so we came up with the idea, together, of how the trails would look, how far away they'd be from neighboring properties, and he's stuck to that plan. And if this is approved, we will take over maintenance and trail building, but we'll still use him to build trails because he has great equipment for it. And he's hands-on, he's out there all the time. And so it'll be a partnership between Jason Evans and the city. So cost-wise, it will be like another natural park, which we don't do a lot in our natural parks. We walk them, we check them for trash, we remove hazardous trees, we trim up branches that grow too close, we fix trails, but we're not there every day like we are in the park. So it wouldn't take any more staff. We do it with the staff we have. Any projects we do with Jason and volunteers. So there really wouldn't be any more cost associated with this other than staffing, our current staffing. What this would give us, though, is another 135 acres of natural park, like Tubbs Hill, like Fernan, like Canfield that we have already. A nice connection to the Forest Service. And I think one of the number one things requested in the surveys we sent out for the master plan, the Parks Master Plan, was more natural open space. And this helps us meet that goal, or part of that goal. So I'm here to ask you if you would recommend to City Council that we enter into an MOU with Jason Evans to manage the Concourse as a city natural park and the Kootenai County Sheriff's Department for the law enforcement mutual aid agreement.
Kiki, questions?
Yeah, I've got a few. This is an exciting project. I know I've heard bits and pieces of it as it's come together, but what a great partnership opportunity. So Shattuck Park, is the parking free there?
Yes.
Okay. And that, it isn't on the map, but it's really just about, how far away is it?
It is, let me open up a map for you. It's probably
It's not like miles away.
No.
It's just,
It's probably like a quarter mile or half mile. Quarter mile if you count, there's a little cut through that makes it quite a bit closer.
can't visualize Shattuck Park right now.
So here is the Canfield Mountain Trail System, and here's the Concourse entrance, and here is Shattuck Park. And coming from Shattuck, if you're going to our entrance, there's a pedestrian access through right here. So it's 2 blocks to there and probably 4 blocks to the Concourse.
And then there's no houses that face Shattuck Lane, right? Those are the backs?
Yeah, those are all double frontage lots, and so rarely are there cars parked along here.
Okay. There
Now,
is
we
a-
will be putting no parking signs east of Copper Way. As you can see on the map, this is Copper Way. Because there's not really a turnaround, and people, they like to come down and turn around the gravel here, and it makes really noisy in the backyards of these people's houses. And so we've blocked off part of it. We're going to block off more of it with boulders, and we have signs that say no parking, parking back to Copper Way. That way, if people want to turn around, they're turning around at the street.
Okay.
So we'll have all the parking on both sides because it's plenty wide enough for parking and 2 lanes of travel all the way back.
And that, I think,
Shattuck.
answers another one of my questions. So that other green spot here off of Shattuck Lane is the entrance to Concourse itself? So
This
there's
right
two
here?
entrances to this property is what I'm seeing.
Yeah, there's an entrance here, and in Jason's plans, he actually has another entrance off of Thomas Lane that I believe people will be able to access that way. I would have to check, because it might go over somebody's property, but if it doesn't, that'll be another option. The water department is going to put a water tower up here somewhere, and may even be able to create a trailhead parking lot, maybe. That's a very maybe
Okay.
thing, but if that's the case, you'll even have more parking drawn away from those neighborhoods.
Okay, so this is kind of a unique situation in that it's Forest Service and private and a city park and then another private piece managed. Are you planning like signage or something that explains what the whole thing is? I've been to this property and gotten myself lost up there a few times, and it's great. I love it. But it was always kind of, I wonder what people's perception of how this came together is. Are you planning anything? And my second to that piece, is there a web presence that explains it, that somebody could access from the site somehow?
Yes to both. So here at the trailhead, we're going to create another little chicane so people can't drive up there. And we're going to put a kiosk like we have at Canfield and at Fernan and some of our other parks. We're going to have a big sign, have a nice little roof over it, and a big wooden structure with like a bulletin board, but it'll also be signs. And the signs will have a map of the concourse, and probably even have a map of our property as well and part of the Forest Service. And it'll show the routes to use. It'll have the rules. It'll probably talk about parking, and we can even talk about the different areas. This is Forest Service, this is the concourse, this is Canfield, and have all that explained at the trailhead. So then the trail would really start here. This is city right away. The trail would start here, and this is where Jason's property starts, the concourse. As you can see, it's already on Google Maps. And the other question was?
A web presence.
Web presence. So Jason already has a website for concourse, and we had talked about one for the city, but I think we're going to wait a little bit until we have all the neighbors' input on and how the parking shakes out, because right now they're a little leery about guiding new people to this, and so we had said, we'll back off on a website for now. Jason already has one. We're not going to direct people to it just yet. We're going to see how it all shakes out, just to make them more comfortable.
That makes sense. And then what about, is Coeur d'Alene Fire the one who would respond to this area? Or how will that work? That maybe gets into part 2 of this mutual aid part, so I can save that question.
Right. And Randy, do you know anything about the fire?
I don't. It is technically outside the jurisdiction of the Coeur d'Alene Fire Department, probably in Northern Lakes.
Okay.
Kootenai Fire. They all have mutual aid agreements allowing them to help one another wherever in the county there needs to be a fire service.
Okay, well, I'll ask more on that one in this next part. And then, do you know, you talked about volunteers. Is there like there's the Cherry Hill BMX Club, and that club does a lot of work on the property there in partnership and different things. Is there a mountain biking club like that works with this?
There is, and the Tubbs Hill also is a great
Right.
Resource for Tubbs Hill. They're doing amazing work. And so we don't have one for Canfield Natural Park or Fernan yet, but the Concourse does. And on his website, he'll talk about trail building days, and he'll get several different mountain bike groups, not just the one. I think the Inland Northwest Mountain Bike Association, I think they help a lot. And I think that there's a couple others out there that they get a lot of people to go up
So
there
he
and
does
board.
have some depth on the bench there for resources to help
Yeah.
with that kind of stuff for park staff.
Oh, yeah,
work
they're
and
all
stuff.
really excited, and they're out
Good.
helping them quite a bit.
Great. Well, that's good. Thank you.
Mr. Coogan?
Woody, why is it, so he tried to do this in the county, and they told him they need a special use permit. And now he's gonna try to do it with us. The property's still in the county, why doesn't he need a special use permit?
To avoid that, we're running it like a city park, so you wouldn't need one. So we would have, it would fall under our recreational use statute. So if anybody gets hurt while recreating, I mean, I guess we could fall under that anyway, but us managing it will circumvent the need to have that,
The property's still owned by him privately.
right?
So in this MOU, we're shifting all liability to the city for
That'd
this
be a
property.
question for Randy.
Yes, under the MOU with Jason, the city assumes the liability. It's just like any other leased park or leased land that the city is using as a park. Even though the city doesn't own it, we basically have the rights to it.
I guess a lot like our BLM property that we have that will be a park within a few months.
That's the government, though. This is private. Yeah, good luck with getting them not to park on Shattuck Lane. I do appreciate it when we have our financial analysis that you actually list the cost. I mean, I'm assuming that the park department doesn't have people sitting around doing nothing now, which means that in order to manage this, you're gonna have to pull people off existing projects.
Well, when we normally have seasonals, we hike them once a week, like Canfield, we would just hike Can Course at the same time. It would probably take another extra hour a week.
That's
to
another
hike it for
hour,
trash.
so more employees. I mean, I'd appreciate it if it actually had the cost. Anytime that I see a staff report and it says, and you're not the only one, this will be done with existing staffing, or we're gonna have some guy from the street department come and do it. I mean, there's a cost involved with that. We pay these people to do their jobs, and when we have an extra job for them to do, it costs us money. And it's good to know what the cost is, as opposed to, oh, we have people just sitting around not doing anything. It sounds really cool. If he'd annex into the city, and if he gave it to the city, I'd support it. But otherwise, I can't, because it's not city property. It's a guy's backyard, and so basically, we're paying public money to maintain his backyard, and that's where I stand. If he wants to annex, have him annex. If he wants to dedicate it all, give us 135 acres, great, we'll make it into a park. But I can't, and again, this is outside the city. We have tons of natural spaces. We have lots of parks. I mean, thanks to Tubbs Hill and a bunch of other natural areas, we have a lot of acres of parks in this town. And I can't support it because it's not in the city.
And we did ask him about annexing into the city, and I believe the difference that you have to pay in taxes was astronomical.
That's his problem.
Anything else?
Nope.
I have a couple questions. So in theory, can he build on that property right now?
Can he build,
Can he build on it?
like houses and stuff?
Right.
Under our agreement, there would be no houses, it would just be recreational use, yeah.
Okay. So he could end that at the same time? I mean, he could say, I'm gonna develop this, so I need my property back, and you don't have to manage it anymore?
It would have to be a mutual, that was written into the agreement as well, both parties would have to decide. And I think that was one of the main reasons why he wanted to purchase that and make it a recreational area, is because he doesn't want a development back there. Because that's what Erickson was planning on doing, was building in a development back there.
How did Canfield come to be? Is that, somebody gave it to us?
Yes, so this development, the Copper Ridge development, when they came in, they had a certain amount of open space they had to give the city because of, it must have been a PO, either annexation or special use, where we give concessions for that. So they had to give us a certain amount of open space. And this was unbuildable, at least because we have the hillside ordinances. Some of it was buildable, but not all of it. And so they gave that to us.
So we're gonna manage it, and Can Course has been there a long time? I get that impression?
the trails in there the illegal trails have been there for a long time, it's longer than we've owned the Canfield natural area. We're just gonna make them nicer trails and user-friendly and get rid of the eroded trails.
And the folks are okay with that little area they can park in? They're not gonna park in front of their homes and stuff like that? Is that the idea?
The idea for Canfield is to try to get people to park here in front of the actual park. They can still park in the street, we're just asking them not to, because it can be kind of, having people in front of your house all the time. I mean, other people in the cities deal with it all the time, but these guys moved out here to be away from all that, like the downtown crowd. So we are trying to get the Canfield Mountain Natural Area users to park here or on Shattuck or at Shattuck Park. We already have found that most of the mountain bikers that access Canfield already park down here.
So those homeowners are okay with this? So far, so good?
We met with them, and they didn't like it at first, and that's why we've pulled back the parking, because that was, the main issue was people parking here and unloading stuff and being a little bit loud. So we're pulling the parking back to here, and the people that had issues with it are happy with that.
So we may see this parking
See,
thing
yeah.
again sometime.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no
Don't
doubt.
park in front of my house. It's open space and you can use it, but you can't park in front of my house.
Well, and they're right. It's a neighborhood.
Right.
That's not a parking lot. It's a neighborhood.
I get it. But they gave us the dirt because it was their open space.
Yeah, it was their problem. Now it's our problem.
Yeah, that's how they do it. All right, any other questions?
I just had a couple, I just wanted to reiterate on this piece, I was thinking about what Dan said. And in this group that I've been working with, there was a poll that went out to the citizens recently, and the number one thing that regionally they came back with for all of our cities to make their number one priority was a collaboration on preserving open space. So the community doesn't want to see more houses, hillside houses or not houses, if they can help it. And so I get that, and I kind of think, this could be this guy's backyard, and we're spending an hour a week to try to get involved with it. But what a huge win in order to give the people what they wanted, which was collaborating on preserving open space and being able to keep it open to the public. So I kind of think if we're listening to what they said, this is one way to get there. And I guess annexing in doesn't make sense. Perhaps there's some way down the road this will change, but it looks like it's on a 5-year agreement with another 5 years after that. So for at least for the short term, we're going to be able to give the people what they've asked for without a huge investment on the city's part and a huge amount of support from the general public, it appears, for getting something they want done. So I think it's a good partnership. It's a good collaboration to kind of keep moving things forward the way we love things here in North Idaho, open-spaced.
Be a better collaboration if he gave it to us, because then we would be sure that it would be in the city forever. And if he wanted to, he could annex it all at R1. Annexation fees would be really low. Then he goes ahead and donates it to the city as a massive tax write-off, and then we have it forever. But as it is right now, it's ours until, and he's the one who makes the decision. So you can give the people something that sounds really cool, and I know you're really jazzed about it, but anytime he wants to, anytime the economics change, he can cancel the agreement and start developing that, which I actually believe is his long-term plan. So I would say, yeah, throw those dice, but be prepared to roll the snake eyes or crap out, because it's not ours. We are at his whim.
No, I think I said that too. We've got a 5 to 10 year plan for it, but this is Idaho and it's private property. And if he wants to develop it, he could be right now. I think we get a 5 to 10 year window that we're able to preserve that open space. And those, I can't see somebody saying, hey, I'm a really nice guy, you can use my property for 15 years. Oh, and then I'm gonna give it to you. But, I think private property does rule, and he should have that option. But in the meantime, we aren't investing hundreds of thousands of dollars into a park that isn't something that our public can't use for the next decade.
Well, we will be we will be dealing with parking. I mean, that's gonna
Yeah.
be the issue, any way you look at it, whether the
And that
neighborhood
could-
doesn't want it.
And that could shut
or
it
not.
down. But,
Right.
but if we can keep the signage and the people informed that, this is a unique situation, and that's why I brought that up, is that if the general public understands that this is a unique situation, it's not, something that is a guarantee, and if they have the respect to be able to use Shattuck Park and park where they're supposed to, it could be a good natural space for a lot of people for quite a while.
And on the third side of the coin, he could have got that special use permit from the county and had it anyway if that was his real intention. But instead, we have the liability now. Someone gets hurt up there, it's on us. Something happens up there, it's on us. And not only that, we have to rely on the sheriff to come and do the patrolling. It stinks to me. I
can't see that the liability would have worked, because he had to enforce it himself. I mean, he would have been.
That's what you do on private property, which this remains even if the city's maintaining it.
Well, it's just making it impossible anyway, it just seems like it would make it impossible for a private citizen to try to do something good. He
Which is
can't.
why he should just donate it to us.
And then, there goes my property rights again. Okay, this is a circle.
So
All righty
Monty,
then.
may I ask, I don't think we can get a motion and get it, I think we just take it to council, just the way it is. You gotta pitch it again. You might take into consideration these questions and thoughts and maybe try and address some of that.
And Jason will be there to
Looks
address a lot of these
good.
questions
I
too.
thought we already have the stuff with the sheriff. We already have agreements. They help us, we help them. Maybe not, but I get it. No, I just think that it's
I think that was the second
it's a
part of this.
good thing on the surface, and just we end up, and we're not real good at parking enforcement. It usually costs us money to do that. I was going to ask you the one question about getting hurt on the mountain. It seems like long ago, we didn't have a skate park because if you got hurt, it came back on the city. Isn't there a thing in Idaho that if you're hurt in a, what do you call it, a park of some sort, you have to take your own responsibility?
That's a recreational use statute, and unless it's negligence on our part, like we leave a big piece of rebar sticking out and somebody hits it, but if they get hurt in the natural course of recreating, then they have to take responsibility.
And that's
I mean, they
true
can
with
still
all the
sue.
sports
Anybody can
too,
sue,
right?
but- What's that?
It's true with all the sports, baseball, football, all the things.
A question for Randy on that. Even though it has that statute, and this is private property, if he's up there maintaining it, which he said he is, does he have any culpability at all?
Yes, the MOU with him makes him responsible for anything he does that's negligent, that injures somebody. If the city does something that the city is negligent, then the city's responsible. But as Monty pointed out, the recreational use statute provides that if a property owner or possessor, such as the city leasing this property, opens the property for recreational use without charge, then there's no liability unless it would be liability to a trespasser, which is gross negligence, a Himalayan lion trap or a tiger trap or something, that a hidden danger that we know about that we don't do anything about.
Hypothetically speaking, if there was a major homeless camp that was opened on the mountain, who would be responsible for removing it?
Probably the county. It's
Well,
in
they'll love us for that, won't
the
they?
county, yep.
Well, do you know something?
No, I'm throwing stuff out there. I mean, if this was a city, we close our parks so you can trespass someone after a certain hour, which is why we don't have the campers up on Tubbs Hill.
And this will have the same type of hours that all our city parks have. Not only, and the mutual aid agreement with the county provides not just that the county will enforce it, the city will also have rights to enforce county and state law, even though it's outside the city. City police can enforce as well. So it's a mutual enforcement. But the county will have primary enforcement responsibility because it is in the county.
Monty, is there any effort you can make to reach out to some of the homeowners to provide feedback regarding the parking situation for us?
Yes, and we're going to invite him to the council meeting as well.
Thank you.
That's good.
And you already did go to the homeowners association and
Yes.
talk about this, so you've been in contact with them, you
Yes,
said.
and I went back when I hung the signs up to the same house they had the homeowners association meeting and spoke to the guy who hosted the party and said, hey, this is coming forward. We sent you an email. If you have any questions, get a hold of us. So, and we'll reach out to him again to make sure that he knows the exact date of the council meeting.
Great.
You guys good with that?
Well, I think we should put it on the agenda, yeah.
Yeah, that's your suggestion, so we'll go with there, and thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Moving along, item 2, Mike Becker. Is the Beckster here?
Before we get started, the wastewater treatment plant is in the city, right? I mean, we're not talking private property here.
Of course it is.
Okay, good. Thank God.
Glad you asked.
Yeah,
you
it's
know.
my big concern.
Welcome, Mike.
Well, good afternoon, council members. And thank you. The wastewater department is presenting our request for a procurement of a centrifuge. So, located at the south end of the plant in our solids handling building, we have presently 2 different technologies for dewatering our sludge, our biosolids. We incorporate an existing centrifuge, which was purchased several years back, as well as a belt filter press, which was purchased in 1999. Fast forward to today, not surprisingly, the belt filter press does not produce the quality of biosolids that we like to have for our compost production. So it has reached its useful life. Here is an example of the 2 different technologies. So we all know that we are going through a growth period, and referring to our facility plan, we reached out to HDR to develop what we call a capital improvement plan addressing the replacement of the belt filter press. But wait, before we jump any further forward, let's take a look at the entire dewatering facility. And so this kind of led up to a bigger project of other things that are needing to be replaced. Those are quite a few and outlined in the staff report. So we did budget for the replacement of the belt filter press this fiscal year, so we do have that a budget authority. Now last fall, when we dug a little further into it, let me go back. When we dug a little further into it, we found out that centrifuges have a long lead time before we could take delivery. Currently, we're using the belt filter press as a backup and primarily using the other centrifuge that we have to dewater our biosolids. So in an effort to minimize the bigger project's duration, reduce any delays in contractor overhead, as well as improve the quality control in the centrifuge selection, the wastewater department solicited requests for proposals for the actual purchase of the equipment before we award the project to a contractor for construction. This was done through a multi-step process. One, we pre-qualified the manufacturers, and step 2 was actually doing a bench scale test model of how effective each manufacturer was able to produce a biosolids that's usable and similar to what we are already getting with our centrifuge. The goal, overall goal of this project was to sit there and actually make this purchase ahead of time. And so in order to bid on this project, we required you to satisfy steps 1 and 2. This table shows a breakdown of all the contractors that bid on the project. GEA Mechanical produces a centrifuge called Westphalia. For you Volkswagen lovers out there, this is not the same company that produces those travel vans. So, realizing that we have pre-qualified their contract, the manufacturers, we asked them to produce a bids, and all of their bids had cost adders. There's many moving parts to this. One of GEA's cost adders was for an expanded controller system. They use a control logics, which is needed to be compatible with a treatment plant's existing SCADA system. Understanding that, we are requesting that this cost adder would be included in their bid price. HDR reviewed all the bids, found all of them to be responsive, and GEA is the lowest bidder with the cost adder included. We do have the budget authority again for this project, for this procurement this year. We have already budgeted for the construction of the project next fiscal year. Now, this is the first time that we have employed a Westphalia centrifuge. We currently have an Alpha Laval centrifuge. So when in doubt, we called around. This is a picture of Napa's facility that was installed in 2018. We reached out to Napa. They told us some things to look out for, but also that they're satisfied with the Westphalia centrifuge. So much so that they're purchasing their third one this next year. So with that, in conclusion, it's the wastewater department's recommendation that we accept the bid from GEA Mechanical Equipment US Incorporated and award the procurement contract for the purchase of the department's new centrifuge dewatering equipment in the total sum of $419,100.
Mr. Gookin.
Oh, it sounds good. I just want to know in that picture of the belt press, is our belt press still have white sheets on it?
No. Imagine what we're dealing with. So those sheets, despite how good we are, they are stained.
Oh, darn.
Kiki.
So how long did you say to order this and purchase it until you received it would be? You said it was,
Ideally, 6 months, but that was an estimate that we received from GEA, and they guarantee that it cannot or will not possibly make that time frame. So that's why we're purchasing it ahead of time, so we don't have a contractor that's waiting for the equipment to arrive.
next year's installation.
Right. We have done this with several of our larger projects where the wastewater department purchases larger, more expensive pieces of equipment.
Okay. I was just wondering if, when the timing of this floating along the production system, and then you have a contractor that's scheduled to start working, and whether the material's there, it's a big piece.
So even if we do take delivery of it before the contractor is ready, we do have facilities that will be able to store this under shelter. As you recall, we're proceeding with our collections building,
Okay.
so we'll have that building available to store equipment like this. This will not be the only piece of equipment that we bring before council.
Couple questions. So this is, right now, we're doing a press. We're wringing it out. Is that kind of what the press does?
Yeah, the
And
press
now-
essentially squeezes the
Squeezes
water
it.
out.
Okay.
The centrifuge spins the water out.
Okay, and so we're going to spins now. The 12-year-old one that we're retiring, that's the press. Is that
That
correct?
would be a 21-year-old.
21.
It was purchased in 1999.
Oh, okay. That was a good run then, huh?
Ah, nice try.
Pursue it. When you.
Yes, it was a good run, and that technology was used quite a bit with even some of our other municipalities around here, but it's just old and tired.
Sure. When you compare with Napa, when you went to Napa, are they in the same boat as us as far as the solids and the concentration? Do they compost, things like that? Do you know?
I do not know of Napa's, how they get rid of their biosolids, but their treatment process is very similar to ours. As you recall, back in the olden days, we used to have a trickling filter that all the bugs and birds could land on. That's currently what they employ down there. Our trickling filter now is encapsulated in those tall domed structures. So yes, the technology is very similar. How they get rid of their biosolids, I'm sorry, I don't have that answer.
But isn't the bottom line on all this is that we need to get our solids to a certain point so they compost better?
Correct.
We're kind of pushing it there, right?
Yes, the belt filter press gets it to roughly about 20%, where the centrifuge will take it anywhere from 25% up to 30. So 28 is a good target. Sometimes, depending, got to remember what's in that biosolids. It's never consistently uniform. After street fair, there's a different chemistry makeup of the biosolids. So we're ideally striving to try to get to that 28%.
Okay, thank you. So look for a motion, if there's no other questions.
Nothing for public.
Yeah.
Mind reels.
Straight to the agenda here.
I
You
move
ready
to accept the bid and approve the award of contract to GEA Mechanical Equipment US Incorporated for the purchase of a centrifuge dewatering equipment in the amount of $419,100.
Second.
Any other comments? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you, council
For
members.
the agenda. Michael, we kept you hanging. Sorry, bud. Come on up. We have a storyteller. This is Michael Priest, our Director of Library, and welcome, Michael. It's our first chance to encounter you, other than you know him, right?
I know him.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. So let's talk about the library. So we'll start with our mission. So the Coeur d'Alene Public Library is committed to excellence in library services, dedicated to lifelong learning, and the library provides free and equal access to a full range of historical, intellectual, and cultural resources. So to me, this means that we're offering materials. That's the obvious point. But these days, it's not just books. We have DVDs, audiobooks, Rokus. We have Wi-Fi hotspots. We have a whole range of different items. If the public wants it, we'll take a look. We'll try and fit it into the collection. We're also providing a lot of programs to the public. So this includes our traditional programs in-house, like story times, arts and crafts programs. We do homework help, online gaming, all kinds of things, author talks when they're available, but also outreach as well. So it's not just in this building. We go out into schools, we go to daycares, we go to senior centers and provide the same kind of experience out into the public. And then, of course, we're a community space. A lot of people come here to gather, discuss things. The meeting rooms are available to the public. We have study rooms for homeschooling families. Whole variety of the community comes in and uses our facility. So we have an organizational chart. So by Idaho code, the library is governed by a board of trustees. These are appointed by the mayor and city council. We have 5, and they establish their bylaws. They craft policy for the library. They also, they prepare and then submit a budget to City Council for approval, and then once it's approved, they oversee the spending of that budget. And then the other thing, of course, they do is hire and evaluate the library director. And so the library director, which is myself, generally oversees the day-to-day operations of the library. I also assist the trustees with crafting that policy, setting procedures, and determining projects for the library moving forward. So I have a few direct reports. There are 3 librarians and 3 coordinators, each with a specific role. So the Reference and Technical Services librarian oversees the adult collections for the library, also oversees the reference desk, which is where we answer higher-end information questions that are more involved and require research. The circulation librarian oversees a lot of the nuts and bolts of the library. Most likely, people who walk in the door are going to be interacting with the circulation department. So they check books out, they check books in, and then they get them back on the shelf. The Youth Services Librarian, also known as the Children's Librarian, does all our youth-focused programming, oversees the downstairs children's library, and then the collections within. And then the coordinators, we have a communications coordinator who is our marketing person, oversees print and increasingly digital marketing of the library. Our IT coordinator oversees our hardware and software at the library. And then our YA coordinator, also known as the teen librarian, does programming for teenage population and also oversees that collection. In all, we have 13 full-time employees, 17 part-time employees. So I thought I'd start with 2020 since it more or less gives some background and also context to where we are right now. So we did, of course, like all departments, COVID-19 was a factor. We were open for 32 weeks. We were offering curbside for 15, and then we were fully closed for 5. And there was a little bit of backwards and forwards depending on the local situation. The Lake City High School satellite branch has been closed since March 16, 2020. All that said, we still managed to adopt several different service models to make sure that we were still getting items in the hands of our patrons. So we still managed to check out over 200,000 items. And then our programming, we switched to virtual or outdoor programming, and we didn't really see a decrease in terms of the engagement among our patrons. So in terms of door count, clearly down from previous years. We were averaging about 250,000. Last year wasn't so great. Physical items, it was a drop, but we still, I think, we're proud that we still managed to get a couple of 100,000 items checked out. Ebooks and e-audiobooks, it's an area we're experiencing the most growth in terms of our collection, and last year was no different. Program attendance, as I said, was fairly level with previous years. We adopted new models for allowing this to happen via virtual, using Zoom, Facebook, every method we could find suitable for us. And we feel like that's going to be a factor moving forward, at least in part. So just some highlights. So the Music on Mondays concert series during the summer was a popular event. The pumpkin giveaway, thanks to wastewater and the pumpkins that they grow, was a great success for us as well. And then those virtual programs. So we managed to shift everything we would normally do here in this room, other rooms around the library, online. So in 2021, so the first 11 weeks of 2021, we were using that curbside model, but we've been open to visitors since March 15th. We're now fully reopened, and it's busy. We're getting back to where we were, and all signs point towards it being a bounce-back year for us, very much so. So programming is back in person. Again, select events are being conducted virtually. It just expands our reach a little more than previously. So visitors, you can see month to month, really growing, getting back to where we used to be. Same for checkouts, bouncing back. And then ebooks, e-audiobooks are hanging in there, pretty consistent use. Right now we're offering our summer reading program for adults, teens, and kids. We've had, it's almost close to 2,000 people participate so far. And we've got different challenges for each age group. Story times are back, outdoors, inside, and outreach is picking up. It was something that managed to stay around during the pandemic, but now that we're getting back out there, we're attending community events, we're back in classrooms, when school's in, preschool as well, and then also we're participating in the CDA Reads program that the school district runs. So we've got some goals going into the next fiscal year. That outreach is becoming increasingly important as a way to reach the community, so we want to increase that. Our adult programming and all ages programming lags behind a little bit, so we want to really focus on that and provide some good programming opportunities for adults and all ages, meaning families. We want to improve our marketing efforts, kind of a long-term goal, never goes away, but we want to make sure that people know about what we're doing and what we can do. We want to add more digital tech and make-it equipment for patron checkout as it's becoming increasingly popular. We want to continue to assess features and services that enhance this facility, create and strengthen partnerships, and then collection development. It's an ongoing thing that we do, and particularly with that focus on ebooks and e-audiobooks where we're experiencing the growth. So just to conclude with a comparison with other Idaho libraries, we're pretty consistently in the same category. Population served is 9th in the state, visitors 9th. Circulation is something we could probably improve, that's 13th. Ebooks 9th, program attendance is 7th, and then our budget is the 10th largest in the state. And I stand for questions.
Mr. Gookin, any questions?
Well, the library is in the city, so I'm cool with it.
Glad to hear that.
I'm glad you're open. Thank you.
Yes, no.
Kiki?
Nothing, good.
I have a couple questions. So I'm always the one that's asking you questions about spending your money, and you've been really good at responding to me because I have to learn all these words and things. My question on your outreach, you showed numbers of so many people, and it showed visitors.
Mm-hmm.
Visitors, a huge number compared to regular visitors. When you're doing budget, do you relate outreach to a budget dollar, or is it just kind of consumed all in there? It's not its own little category, right?
Not at present, no. So we have a small outreach team. So some of our staff are dedicated to doing outreach. We pull in staff as needed, but there are 2 right now staff members who their responsibility is to make connections and then go out to the community and provide programming and just kind of tailoring it to what that group wants. So if a senior centre wants just book checkout, that's what we'll do. If they want some programming, maybe some research type for us to answer research questions, we can provide that too. We engage with the groups and see what they want.
When you do, you showed some of the music and some of the little things that you do. You keep scoring how many people come. Does it ever get to a point where you don't want to do it anymore because you're not getting enough people?
Yeah, we do continually assess the programs that we put on. Some work, some don't. That's just how it goes. So it's kind of that balancing act. And we like to try new things too,
Sure.
Especially as the community gets, wind of something else that might interest them. We want to be there.
I think that's one of the reasons they brought you here, right? A new perspective on things.
Well, I hope so, yes.
Pressure's on, right?
Right, yeah, for sure.
Anything else?
No, thank you
Thank
very
you so
much.
much for your time. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
And with that, look to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, been moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're out of here. Thank you so much.